So thank you everyone for attending the What's New in Ideate Software Solutions for the May 2021 release. Again, my name is Richard Taylor with Ideate Software, and thanks for joining. Just a couple housekeeping items at the very end of the presentation. There'll be a very short summary or questionnaire. There's only, I believe, 3 or 4 questions. We'd really appreciate that if you fill that out. It helps us better focus these presentations, and we ask you what you'd like to see as well. And people always ask, is this webinar being recorded? Yes, it is, and it will be available on our website. So I'll give you a reminder at the end of the presentation to fill out that survey as well. So I wanted to go over the general improvements of all 5 Ideate software solutions. So, we're calling this our May release, but it's really our Q2. And so our Q2 May 2021 release aligns with Revit 2022. So, that was introduced in April of 2021. But we also updated our software for Revit 2019 through 2022. So if you're using Revit version 2019 or Revit version 2020, the features that you see here are going to be available. There's a couple caveats that I'll mention that are only available in Revit 2022, just because the Autodesk made some additional API improvements that we were able to take advantage of only for that particular release. But all 5 of our software solutions are now delivered in 5 languages, actually 6 with English. So Simplified Chinese, French, German, Japanese, and Spanish. So if you're using that, let's say the native language version in Revit, so you've set it so that you're going to go into German language, our Ideate software solutions will just automatically be in German and available to you. So we've done a lot of work working with local individuals and partners in those regions to make sure that we are translating that correctly. So it's not just a Google Translate. We've actually done a lot of research because everyone knows that AEC terms are quite different than just normal language terms. In addition, we've also enhanced our cloud networking support. So most virtualized environments are now supported by our new cloud networking. So if you're not familiar with that, we offer both the traditional FlexLM network as well as our new cloud network licensing. And there is no cost between those two. So if you, for instance, have the traditional FlexLM licensing and you'd like to move over to our cloud network, all you need to do is send an email to support@ideatesoftware.com, and we'll get that process started for you. In addition, Autodesk as they always do, makes changes to their BIM 360. So the legacy was called BIM 360. Now it's called the Autodesk Construction Cloud. And so we're supporting both BIM 360, sort of the legacy system, as well as the new Autodesk Docs or Autodesk Construction Cloud. So there was a couple of blog articles that were written earlier about this change, because the change happened with Autodesk actually before they released Revit 2022. So there was some issues as far as like pathing and so forth when it comes to sticky. But if you have been waiting, it's good to go and basically download or install the new versions of the software, because now we're supporting both the legacy BIM 360 pathing as well as the Autodesk Construction Cloud pathing. So it's just automatic. You don't have to worry about that. So again, these improvements are for all 5 of our Ideate software solutions. So what I'd like to do today is give you a very high-level overview of each of our 5 solutions and tell you some major improvements and enhancements. And I will say, even at the end of the presentation, I'll review this. If you want to learn more, you can go to our help system, and always under help. In fact, I'll just do that right now since I'm talking about it. If you go to help, right, any particular product, like let's just pick Ideate Sticky, getting started, there's always a what's new section. So you can then click on see what's new for Ideate Sticky or what's new for Ideate BIM Link. And so there's more detailed information than what I can do in a half hour today, but I'm going to give you the highlights here. Okay, so Ideate BIM Link, our first solution. Ideate BIM Link, as hopefully many of you know, is the premier solution for allowing you to extract information from the Revit model, send it to Excel, be able to review that information or manipulate or change that information and then bring that back into the Revit model. Now, traditionally, we have done this because we have exported out the Revit element ID. So there has been a one-to-one relationship between the Revit element that you're working with, let's say a wall, the Revit element ID. So when you update any parameter information on that will automatically update. But those Revit element IDs are very specific, right, to the model. And so if you wanted to transfer information from one model to another, the element IDs obviously wouldn't match. So one of the new workflows that we're supporting is this alternate key method. The alternate key method allows you to use a unique data key, such as a type mark as an example, or maybe a room number that doesn't necessarily have to be the Revit element ID. So therefore you can transfer let's say data from one project to another, or maybe even from different phases, like when it comes to rooms is another good example. In addition, I'm also going to show this, that we have updated some of the manipulations that you can do with Ideate BIM Link. We've always been able to review the nested family parameters, but now we're able to edit those and make changes as well. So what I'm going to do here is just show you a little bit about this new alternate key data method. And so when you call up BIMLink, one of the first things you might want to do, we're always talking about this. We deliver with about 350 to 400 sample link definitions. If you just type in AK, that stands for alternate key. And we've included some of these sample link definitions, like in this case, the lighting fixture types alternate key that already has the alternate key set to the type mark. But what you can do now is once you have the parameters, the linked properties on the right-hand side, you can go, and for instance, this case, you can go to type mark, you can right click, and you can set that as the data key. Now, it will turn blue. It was already set, but that's what it basically, the column header says, all right, if it's a dark blue, that is the data key. And so just like normal with BIMLink, I'm going to export this out to an Excel file and show you what I've exported. So that column A, instead of having the Revit element ID, actually has now the type marks, right? And information about manufacturer, model. So I was using an MEP model that had very specific data. And now I'm in an architectural model where the type marks are the same, but there's no manufacturer, there's no model, there's no lamp. They're basically just generic placeholder fixtures. And I want to now replace them with more specific lighting fixtures, more data. So I'm actually going to swap the components as well, because that's something you can do in Ideate BIMLink. So now I'm going to import that same Excel file. And it tells me, just like it always does, the kind of nice review of information of what's changed, what's updated. And so I go ahead and say, great, I update that. And now you can see when I look at the schedule, which is the architectural lighting schedule, it has manufacturer filled out, model, lamp, type comments, and it actually swapped that generic placeholder lamp with a more specific lamp. So we're actually editing, like I said, swapping the components. Now this feature, swapping nested families, like I said, was always exposed in the sense that the parameter was available, but now we can actually use that sub parameter. So in this case, I just showed an example of here's a single panel door. It's got some panel types. It's got a solid and a glass panel type. So I can switch that one door to a glass panel. I can show you how, like in this case, the panel type, notice that's editable now. I'm going to import a number of doors where I already have the panel type set to glass. And you can see that it's updated. I can say, great, go ahead and update that information. So again, just giving you more access to the information in the Revit model that you can manipulate with Ideate BIMLink. So just a couple new workflow examples. So as we move on to Ideate Sticky, Ideate Sticky, as hopefully most of you know, is our connection to Excel, Word, and PDF. It allows you to live link that data. So we're calling it sort of non-BIM data because it's not tied to a specific element within Revit, but you can link Word files or PDF files or Excel documents either as a schedule header or as an image into your Revit project. So we've done some great enhancements here. One of the biggest enhancements that people have asked us with when it comes to images, when you're using Word or PDF, what was happening is, like, if they were really close together, they were kind of not overriding each other in the sense of one was on top of another, and so it was hard to get on the margins. It was hard to get that transparency. So now we've introduced the image transparency, as well as the ability to open directly from the Ideate Sticky dialog, which I think is a great enhancement. So in this case, this is an example of the transparency. What I'm talking about here is, notice how I've got two general notes, and one is sort of on top of the other because of the margins in the actual document are pretty wide. And so that white space ends up sort of bleeding over and covering the second document. So now I can change that to, you know, different colored, let's say black and white. I can click on the transparency there. Once I click on the transparency, now notice that the two images, even though they're kind of overlaid on top of one another, and that yellow space is the overlap, you still see both documents and the text because I've turned on transparency. All right, let's go. And I want to also switch over here to Revit. And if I come over here to, let's say, my schedules, and I have a sheet here with the schedule, right? And so in the past, it was always, I'd always have to kind of like remember where this was and go to the actual directory. But this is what I love so much about it now, is that you can just go to the Ideate Sticky dialog. It's going to tell you, you know, if it's up to date and stuff. But in this case, I'm going to click here and I'm just going to say open the file. Now I can go directly to that Excel file where the path is located, whether it's on Autodesk Construction Docs or whether it's on an absolute or relative. So in this particular case, you know, I'm going to say, oh, well, you know what? This is going to be in Boston, Mass. That's where I'm located. And I'm going to go ahead and save that and then click exit. And then we'll kind of come over here and just say, just so you see that, update. And so it's going to then go get the latest and greatest. And so now it says Boston, Mass. So like I said, even though it's a simple thing, I think this open file, it's been a customer request for quite a long time, and I'm really glad that we were able to implement it. So Ideate Explorer, you know, Ideate Explorer is our Revit model browser, allowing you to easily navigate your model, select things, being able to swap one component or one element for another. So it is really all about model auditing, understanding how your model's put together, as well as Revit warnings management. And so what we've done is we've added, of course, we're always doing this to Ideate BIM Link as well as Ideate Explorer. Any new Revit elements that were in Revit 2022 are added to our, you know, browser tree. One of the things we heard from a customer was that the Revit, the sketch reference planes were not very helpful, and they were just, it didn't matter. You couldn't really do anything with them. So in that particular case, we said, you know what, we only want to show you the information that is relevant, that is actionable, that you can change. And so we actually removed that. And then I'm going to show you a couple things here with the integrated selection box and the properties. But first, I want to show you the sheet count. So what we did is, you know, we're always adding new parameters to our query as well as our Ideate BIM link, in the sense of, like, with parameters available. In the past, there have been things like, is it pinned? Is it not pinned? Is it mirrored or non-mirrored? Is it an in-place family? You know, those are properties that just sort of aren't available in base Revit. Here's another one, sheet count. So if I go to the view, I can see all of the sheet counts on each. So for instance, in this case, I can select the ones that say 0, right? And it's going to give me, there's 37 that don't appear on a sheet. So if I wanted to, I could say, oh, I'm going to uncheck the key schedules, and then I'm going to review the panel schedule. I'm going to review the analytical surfaces, or maybe the electrical circuits. Maybe it should be on a sheet. So it gives me a quick way of understanding which views have not yet been placed on a sheet with that sheet count. All right, so let's do another item here. Let's go back over to my model. And, you know, I just love the fact that we've integrated a lot of these tools that are available in Revit, but they make it your workflow so much easier. So I'm going to fire up Ideate Explorer here. And one One of the things, I'm sure you know, I'm showing elements by category, but I can switch over here to level. And if I switch to level and I look at all the elements on each of the levels, for instance, I can see that there's going to be, hopefully here in a second, an issue where there's doors on the top of footing. And, I could actually select that, but it's kind of hard for me to see in my model. I don't exactly know where it is. So now I have this great little item here. It says selection box. So I've selected that door, and now I can look at the selection box and say, oh, that's exactly, I want to be able to change that. It should have been at the top of footing. Maybe it should be at some other location. It should be on the first floor. So I'm going to make that change, right? And then I can say, well, you know what? Let's go back over to the view, and I'll turn off the selection box. And now I'm looking at the full view again. Some other commands that we've integrated under the warnings, you'll notice that I've got, again, these two elements that overlap. Here's a floor, here's another floor. It's kind of hard for me to see the two. So what I'm going to do is select on both of them. Now go over to this and say isolate the elements. Now when they isolate the elements, I'm like, oh, well, obviously I can see this problem here. Let's edit that boundary of the floor slab. Let's bring that back so it's not conflicting anymore. We'll say yes. And no, I don't want to save intervals. Let's say don't attach. And now I've removed that particular warning. When I'm done, I want to reset my temporary hide isolate. So now I can access that right through the Ideate Explorer dialog. So really nice being able to enhance that particular workflow. I love that, being able to have those right there in the Ideate Explorer dialog. Okay. With Ideate Style Manager, we made a major update to Ideate Style Manager in November 2020. And so, Ideate Style Manager is our solution for allowing you to understand all of these styles in your Revit project, object styles, line styles, even filters, and whether they're being used or not being used, and then you can make the appropriate action. You can either remove them or you can merge them together. It's a great way to keep consistent standards. So with our 2021 release, so the May, right, we didn't add that many improvements because we had just done a major release a few months earlier. So of course it has all the language support that I talked about earlier. It has all of the support for the cloud licensing. But I wanted to just highlight the fact that if you're looking at Style Manager, and let's say you have that, and you see you don't have some of these collections, like you don't have filled regions, you don't have viewports, text fonts, dimensions, and arrowheads, then you should really make sure that you download the latest and you have that available, because now all of those are part of the Ideate Style Manager collections. And then a couple other things that we did, again, from customer feedback. When you merged styles together, it would give you a pop-up window with a lot saying that these styles were merged and everything completed successfully. And so some customers found that a little bit annoying. So what we did is remove that, and basically it'll just say it completed successfully. If there was some issue as it's going through and merging items, and maybe something wasn't available because it was work shared or whatever the reason, then of course that little pop-up window will show you the issues. But if everything's fine, it'll just say that everything was merged or deleted successfully. Okay, now we're moving on to Ideate Apps. And as you know, Ideate Apps is the collection of 9 Revit productivity tools for all users, allowing you to renumber things very easily. In fact, my colleague, Glynis Patterson, just did a fantastic webinar on renumbering last week that we just did a blog today. So if you're curious about that, you can review our blog information. You can use Quick Select. You can find elements that maybe might get deleted because they have dependencies. That's our Smart Delete. You can understand why something doesn't display in a particular view because of our Ideate X-ray. And then we have a number of sheet and view tools allowing you to place views on sheets, align views, copy sheets, bulk create views. And most of the enhancements were around these sheet and view tools. So here's where I said the caveat, Revit 2022 allowed us to take control of not only the view placement, but also the title placement. And that's been a huge request. But unfortunately, it's only available in Revit 2022, and I'll show an example of that. And then we can copy plan views to other plan families. We can do alternate view placement, so not only the model coordinates, but now the centroid of the view, which works really well if you're laying out, let's say, unit plans, or you've got, like let's say a condo building where you've got each particular unit plan. You don't necessarily want it aligned on the sheet in the exact model location. You'd rather have it aligned by the view. So let's take a look at that. So here you'll see in the upper left-hand corner is the overall model, right? And so what we've done is we split it into A, B is the center, and then C down below is the lower wing of the building. And so each one of those other three views is representing, the top, the lower, or the center view. Okay. Now notice that you select align plan views using model coordinates. This has sort of been the traditional way. If you've used the alignment tool, you're familiar with this. Each view on the other sheets aligns exactly where the model is, coordinates are. But now we've added this new one. If you untick that align plan views using model coordinates, it chooses the centroid of the view. And so by placing on sheets based, like I said, with unit plans, you might want to have it be on the center of the sheet instead. So again, the blue dots represent that now that view is in the centroid of the sheet. And let's switch over here to Revit again. And if I come over, and I wanted to show you the alignment of like not only the title, or I should say not only the view port itself, but actually the title on sheet as well. So in this case, I've got this view, right? And I've got I've got another one here. I'm going to come up over to Sheet Manager. And I've placed this is the east wing of the building. If I come over here to my mechanical and I open up that by double clicking, you will see that that is opened up, but it's not in the same location, right? And maybe I want to have those two aligned. But before I do that, I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to say, not only do I want them aligned, right? But I want to take this right here and maybe I want it to be like the center of the view. So here's the view title. That is something that we really haven't had access to before. I'm moving the view title. Okay, now I want to select here and select, my alignment. And say that, okay, now the alignment view is actually going to be that finishes. That's what I want right here, right? And notice that there's a couple tick marks here available. It says align plan views using model coordinates. That's what we just saw. But in this case, I also want to have this tick match plan view title position. So the sheet now is going to be, let's say, let's come over here and see, views to align. Oh, I don't want my door hardware. That's why it's not giving me that. Let's say first floor architecture east, and now I want my mechanical. So I want to align not only my mechanical east, but also the plan view title position. So I'm going to select align, and it does its magic. And so once that's done, I'm going to select done here. And now if I come over to mechanical, you can kind of see it in the background there. I fit that. It's now in its proper, mechanical. It's now in its proper location, but the view title has been placed in the center. So not only did it select the X and Y model coordinates, but it moved that view title position as well. And again, as I said, I wanted to be the caveat there, it's only available in Revit 2022. Also, I wanted to showcase the fact that if you come over here to Ideate Software, you come over here to View Creator, we've added some abilities to pick a new family when you're actually creating new views. And what I mean by that is when I select views, okay, I'm going to select here and I'm going to do an area plan that's based on the gross building, right? And that you can see there in the parentheses, gross building. If I tick this duplicate to other family, not only am I going to pick the view, but I can say, well, you know what? I actually don't want it to be gross building. I want it to be rentable instead. So I'm picking a different family type. And you can see that I could, maybe a view that I set up for ceiling plans, I can go over to floor plans or structural plans. And again, just say next. This is do I want to copy the boundary lines or not? I don't want to copy the boundary lines. and it's giving me now a new floor, first floor rentable, right? And I'll say that just create the one view. So that's another nice new feature that we've added, being able to manipulate those. When you're using View Creator, you can manipulate the family types as well. So what I'd like to do is, oh, I see, thank you very much, Sash, that you have joined. Are there any questions that you feel that should be, let's say, mentioned for the greater group?
Yeah. Hey, Richard. Yeah, sorry, I was a little late. There was another presentation, but yeah, a question related to getting updates. And can you talk a little bit about that whole process as well?
Absolutely. So there's several ways. In each individual product, right, you can go to their little pull down and you can say check for updates. So like I'm going to switch over here, right? I'm going to just pull up, I don't know, Sticky as an example. And so when I pull up the dialog for Sticky, you can see over here, there's always the ability to go to our online help and all the other, licensing. But if you say here, check for updates, it's going to tell you the version that you have installed. And then you can go out to the website to make sure that that version matches what you have. And if it's not, then of course you want to update. And, we've had several different types of installers. We have the MSI, there's a bundle installer where you can actually update all 5 solutions at once, which is really nice. And so the download is obviously on our ideatesoftware.com website /download. And then, as I mentioned earlier, you can review the what's new in each individual product. So, I just highlighted here BIM and Explorer, but I'd encourage you, because again, I've been talking for 27 minutes and I was able to give you a high level overview, but there are certainly more details available that you might want to review. So great, Sash. I don't see any other specific questions, I don't think.
Nope, I think you covered everything. Great work.
Okay, it's hard to do in a half hour. So again, I want to encourage everyone, please, to fill out the survey. There's, like I said, there's just a few questions. It always helps us focus these presentations for you. And I love the question that says, what would you like to see going forward? Because we're always, listening to our customers and listening to your ideas. And so that's great to hear. And like I said, the webinar will be available for viewing. We'll probably do a blog about it, just like we did, as I mentioned, we just did a blog on the Renumber webinar. And so you can review that blog and then click to the link to actually watch the Renumber webinar. So with that, again, I don't see any specific questions, but if you do, please type them into the question window. And I want to thank you for your time and attention. I want to thank you. Most of you are Ideate Software customers because you're here to learn about the new enhancements. So thank you very much for being an Ideate Software customer. We appreciate it.